theme this month is abundance. And my topic today is my cup runneth over. My cup runneth over. In the spirit downloads that I get, it defines abundance as where your identity resides in my completeness. Let that sink in for a moment. That abundance is not a number, abundance is not a quantity, abundance is an awareness, abundance is an energetic vibration. Abundance ultimately has to do with how you see yourself. Not what you see in the outer world, but your own conception and perception of yourself. Your identity speaks to the core of who you are. It's not just about an activity or what it is that you're doing, but it is this overwhelming sense that when you think of yourself, this is how you perceive yourself to be. The spiritual journey is really about perception. It's really about perception. And part of our goal at Light Ministries is to shift that perception that we sometimes have of ourselves as merely being human beings, of being entities, these objects that are walking around in the world that are being subjected to life. That life is happening at us, life is happening to us. And to shift that awareness into an understanding that you're not a noun. You're a verb. You are a verb. Life's not happening at you, life is happening as you. Life is happening as you. That each and every one of us is an energetic, vibratory field. And part of our job is we have to recalibrate. We have to recalibrate because we're resonating at too low of frequencies. It's like the chi vitality in our health. You don't just get rid of illness, you pump up the health. And it's such a different world when you know that you are first and foremost a spiritual being. First and foremost, a spiritual being, a verb. Activity in motion. That life is not happening to, life is happening through. Now imagine if this identity lives somewhere. Lived somewhere. And when we think of this residing, don't think of it so much as a residence, like a house, a home, an apartment, or whatever, that you are going in and out of throughout the day. No. This is the totality of your beingness that you take with you wherever you go. This phrase, my cup runneth over. Some of you might recognize that as being part of the 23rd Psalm from Hebrew Scripture. My cup runneth over. And the end of that 23rd Psalm is one of my favorite passages within the Psalm, which is one of my favorite things in all of Scripture, is I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Sink that in for a moment. I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. This dwelling is more than just I go home, I take a shower, grab something to eat, take a little nap, and then go out again. This dwelling is where I am all of the time. My cup runneth over. So for 95% of my life, perhaps, this idea of my cup running over is I saw myself as this little cup. And I was waiting for something out there or whatever to come in and fill this little cup up. So I'm looking at my cup. Is my cup half empty? Is my cup half full? Like, what's in there? And there's a beautiful spirit letter in the Sacred Yes that says, get rid of that. That whole paradigm, is the cup half empty or half full, has you looking at the wrong thing. It's got you looking at the wrong thing. So, if I have a 3-ounce container and it has 2.5 ounces in it, I'm going to say that it's close to full. If it's got 4 ounces, it feels like it's overflowing. If it's got that same 2.5 ounces in a 2-gallon container, I'll probably say I don't have anything. But it's the same amount. It's the exact same amount. And the Spirit letter is saying, just bless the water. Just bless the water. Don't worry about the container that it's in. Just bless the water, because the water is the fullness of itself wherever it is, in whatever amount. And when we're busy trying to look at it, is it half full, half empty, it says your attention is focused on what isn't even there. When you're talking about the half empty, we're not just little cups waiting around to be filled up. The awareness is really, really just sinking in of why this is that our cup is always overflowing. It's much like the analogy that I will often make about this thing that we talk about sometimes about where is God? However you're defining that to be, the great I am, the creative energy, the infinite intelligence. And sometimes people will think of it as being out there. Others will say, no, it's within. And it's kind of fallacious because it's much like air in our lungs. We have air in our lungs because we're walking around in air. So where's the air? Is the air within? Is the air without? All of the above, yes. Because it just is. And there's no spot where it's not. So trying to localize and say like where God is, it's like trying to localize and say where is the air? It's everywhere. It's like this with all of the spiritual qualities, including the abundance. Is the abundance within? Is the abundance without? Yes. Because the abundance just is. But the reason why we have abundance in our lives is because we are walking around and living in abundance. And when we do not realize that, when we do not recognize that, we do not experience ourselves as abundant. This is that dwelling in the house of the Lord forever, dwelling in the abundance. My cup is overflowing because I am constantly dipping it in the reservoir of the divine. I'm getting an image now of a punch bowl. Now, after COVID-19, I don't know if we're ever going to see a punch bowl again. This may be something that, gets in the archives. But the punch bowl, okay? And my family had like these big, heavy, like leaded crystal punch bowls with these, the little crystal cups. And the thing about it, it's just like a bucket to the well, or it's just like a bucket out to the ocean. That you want punch, you put your cup down in there. And if you really want your cup full, you submerge. Listen to what I'm saying. You don't just skim off the top. You want a little bit, okay, like you skim off the top. But if you want a full cup, you have to submerge. You push it all the way down in there. And as you're bringing it up, because it's been submerged, the punch is falling all over the cup. So just imagine this with our lives. Think about anything that you have ever felt at any moment in time an abundance of. Maybe it was love. Maybe it was health. Maybe it was creativity. It could have been almost anything. And in that moment of the abundance, you didn't feel like you had a ration. You didn't feel like you had a little cup of love, or you had a little cup of creativity, or you had a little cup of health. No, that's not what you felt like. In that moment, when you were really experiencing that spiritual quality, you were feeling at one with it. You were participating in it. There wasn't you and love. There was you as love. There wasn't you over here and then creativity. There was creativity expressing itself as you. Because you were so tapped into it, you were so immersed in it, that you didn't have an identity separate from it. Let that sink in for a moment. You didn't have an identity separate from it. It wasn't like, oh, I'm here and suddenly I'm being creative. Oh, I'm here and now I'm loving. When you're in it, you're not even defining it. You're so much in it and so much being it that there doesn't even seem to be a distinction between you and it. This is when your identity starts to reside in the completeness. See, abundance is where your identity resides in the divine completeness. Part of the reason why we don't experience the abundance is because we're living in not enoughness. We're thinking that there's something missing. We're living in lack and limitation consciousness. But here's the kicker, is the lack and the limitation isn't just about the quantity of the stuff out there. That within us, we think we're not enough. Within us, we think there's something missing. Within us, we are convinced that the abundance isn't there because ... Because of something that hasn't happened. Something I haven't done, something that hasn't been done for me, something that hasn't been happening with me, like whatever that is. And then we go trying to chase after whatever that is that we think is missing. I had the epiphany of a lifetime around this last night, where during these moments of all of this quote-unquote shut down and so much moving to virtual, I perhaps have been busier than ever. And though my plans have been stripped away, my dreams are starting to reawaken. They're starting to reawaken. And I find that there's all of these openings that are starting to happen. And I'm watching my narrative, that story that we tell ourselves, and this narrative of the not enoughness. And I'm being really vulnerable now. I have never gone out on this limb publicly before. I know I have a calling. And I know the things that have been given to me, that I speak and that I teach and that I write about, are precious. And they are good. Not because I created them, but they have come from an infinite place of wisdom. And in that process of dipping my cup down in there all the time, there's always an overflowing. But it's been almost like hiding my light under a bushel, where there's this narrative that I've had about why my career is not further, why it is that I'm not reaching more people, why it is this thing or that thing. And I have this narrative about, well, you know, my stuff's not packaged right. It doesn't look as professional. Yeah, it's as good as anybody else's out there, but it doesn't look as professional. Or I haven't done this thing yet. I don't have my marketing. I don't have my branding. You know, like all these different things. And a dear friend of mine, Ayala Van Zant, has been using my material quite a bit lately in some teachings and some trainings. And she's about to do it again. And I so appreciate that. And I keep having flashbacks of a conversation that we had, I don't know, could have been 15 years ago. It was a spontaneous lunch at one of the Agape Revelation conferences. And we were having lunch, and she's actually the one that hooked me up with Sounds True, my current publisher. And she was asking me questions about myself, and what I wanted to do and where I wanted to go. And then there was this moment where she just looked at me and she said, "It's you." I said, "What?" She said, "The problem is you." She said, "I've been trying to figure out for years why you haven't blown up yet." She said, "It's you." And that's been sitting with me for like 15 years. And I finally have gotten it. It's me. That more and more stuff keeps happening, and the plans of all the places where I thought I was going to go and how it was going to work and all of that, it just keeps getting torn up into shreds with more and more news and more things changing. And I know everybody here can relate, because life's just not the same. And the things that we thought we were banking on, it ain't that. It's not that kind of party anymore. Something else happening. Something else new. And I got this epiphany last night that I am enough. That I'm enough. And to stop waiting for whatever, this facility to sell, or to this thing, or to that thing. That whatever that is that each of us is called into being, just identify with it. Make it who you are. not some activity you're waiting for permission to engage in, not something that you're waiting for somebody to come around and create an opportunity for you to do. Be it. And this dwelling place, one of the most important places that it resides is in your mouth. In your mouth. In what you declare and what you affirm. You can tell your identity by what comes out of your mouth, as well as what it is that you do. The song that Etienne wrote that he's going to be sharing is kind of a spin-off, or it is a spin-off, from one of the letters in my second volume called Your Deepest Intent. My name is safe in your mouth. And that letter was inspired by this thing that I saw on email where these 4-year-olds were asked, what is love? And my favorite one was this little boy, Johnny. And he said, when somebody, you know somebody loves you because they say your name different. You know your name is safe in their mouth. Do you love abundance? Is abundance safe in your mouth? You say you want money or cash flow. Is that safe in your mouth? How do you speak of it? Are you pissed off, angry, feel betrayed? Doubts, fears, hesitations, worries? Is it safe in your mouth? Etienne sang about, I speak to your heart. Speak to my heart. The very first letter in the entire Letters from the Infinite series. Very first letter in the Sacred Yes, which is the precursor to Your Deepest Intent. That letter is, I speak to your heart, which is a spinoff from that song, that opening song. And the only way that we can hear it, see, the universe is always speaking to us, but when we don't consider ourselves part of it and one with it, then we don't hear it. See, creativity is all around us. Love is all around us. Abundance is all around us. The joy is all around us. But when we don't think it is us, then we consider ourselves to be outside of it. Is your name safe in your mouth? We're talking about identity here. That abundance is when your identity resides in the completeness of the divine. Is your name safe in your mouth? What are you saying about yourself? What are you saying about your career? What are you saying about your family? What are you saying about your possibility prospects? What are you saying about the government? What are you saying about anything? Is it safe in your mouth? That doesn't mean that everything that you say has to be nicey-nicey. You know, as a parent, you've got to discipline. Every word's not going to be nice, but can it be kind? Is it said out of love? Maybe it's tough love. I'm not saying don't be critical in the sense of having an honest critique of yourself. Call yourself up. Call yourself out, but love yourself while you're doing it. Don't tear yourself down for all the things that you think that you're not. Realize that it's already who you are. Stop waiting for something to come along and fill up your cup. You take your cup. You take your heart. You take your creativity. You take everything about you and dip it in the well. Dip it in the well. Put it in the punch bowl. Put your cup all the way down in there. All the way down in there. And watch it keep overflowing. And why is it overflowing? Because it's too much for your little cup. The abundance that's out there is more than you personally can possibly handle. And that overflow is filling up everybody else. You can't use it up. You're using it up. The true good stuff of the spiritual qualities, you're using it up is not going to impinge upon anybody else using it up. If we all sang around the world simultaneously, we couldn't use up music. If we were all joy-filled simultaneously around the world, you couldn't use up joy. If we were all abundant in our hearts all around the world, there would be enough and you couldn't use it up. Don't be afraid to stand in it. And here's the irony. You might be afraid that you're taking too much of something, or you're afraid that if you get in there won't be enough for somebody else, but it is just the opposite. The less you love, the less love there is out there for other people to partake of. The less creativity you put out there, the less creativity that there is. The less abundance that you allow yourself to experience, that's the more impoverished we all are. When you are willing to stand in it, to have your name safe in your own mouth, to have everybody else's name safe in your own mouth, some empathy, some compassion. We just completed Ramadan last night, where people have been fasting and praying in compassion and empathy. Not just sacrificing, but putting themselves in the shoes to remember. And to remember that the divine is their source. Taking that moment to shift their identity. And so it is with us in our lives. Shift. Remember who you are. You are a powerful spiritual being, perfect, whole, and complete right where you are. Nothing is missing, and newsflash, there's nothing extra. There's nothing extraneous. There's nothing that you've got to cut out, try to get rid of. Just surrender it. And let the alchemy of the divine, the refiner's fire, melt it down into something that is a blessing for all. Just breathe that in. Breathe that in. And as we pray, we're knowing in this moment that right where we are is enough. There's nothing to prove. And no one to prove it to. And living in this enoughness, in this moment, we surrender all. We surrender the hopes, the dreams, the desires, the agendas, the timetables. We surrender the fears, the worries, the concerns. We lay it all down. And we just take everything about us and dip it in the well. Submerge ourselves like walking around in the air. The divine is within because we are living and moving and having our being in the divine. Let us move and have our being in the abundance, so that indwells us just like breath. And we're knowing that it comes in whatever we need. Healing of the body temple, financial abundance and sustenance. Even in these hard times, we make it through by the grace of God. The name that we continue to keep safe in our mouth. It's good. Life is good. We just get out of the way and we allow it to be. And so it is.